from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, the House rolls out a new farm bill and the road is already rocky. In agribusiness, the obstacles that stand in the way.
Even if both houses manage to get something through their respective houses, what kind of compromise could we agree to that the president would also sign?
Plus cold weather stressing peach growers in Arkansas and tips for corn on corn from Farm Journal College TV.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The House Ag Committee has officially released its version of the Farm Bill, and it's already facing hurdles over work requirements in the nutrition title. Ag Committee Chairman Mike Conaway sharing the text Thursday. It includes added work requirements for folks seeking SNAP benefits. Democrats say it's a non-starter. Now, on the farm side of the bill, we're joined by national reporter Betsy Gibbon now with details. Betsy.
Clinton, Conaway says there are some changes on the ag side of the bill, but insists Title I is more evolutionary than revolutionary. Text of the proposed House Farm Bill is released. Conaway says there are no big changes to Title I, more fine-tuning to programs like ARC and PLC. The biggest fix is aimed at the ARC county numbers.
We try to fix the county ARC payment scheme where we're using better data so that we don't get such desperate payment rates out of between counties.
They'll be using data from the Agricultural Marketing Service rather than NASS to determine payments, changes some growers have wanted.
So a better ARC or better ARC and PLC?
Better ARC. I would like to see a more specific version of the payment program come in.
Conaway says while there are small changes to federal crop insurance, subsidy levels should not change.
I don't think with lower commodity prices and the farm economy as a whole going down for consecutive years, I don't think that we're hearing a loud outcry to lower premium support to farmers at this time.
The conservation program has year-over-year increases, climbing to potentially 29 million acres by 2023.
We're going to lower the rental rates. Will have to come back down because they were set against the much higher commodity prices, so they're too competitive right now.
Conaway says there is a new program for livestock producers, a vaccine bank to prevent foot and mouth disease.
And we also would like to see USDA establish a foot and mouth disease vaccine bank to try to give us just another tool to protect us from the reintroduction of foot and mouth disease.
Conaway calling the program a meaningful start, but acknowledges he did not get all of the funds for it livestock groups wanted in this text. House Ag Committee Ranking Member Colin Peterson also introduced the Dairy Risk Management Program, which would replace the Margin Protection Program. The legislation provides dairy farmers with a stronger safety net to address volatile market conditions outside of their control. Conaway saying he's hoping for a markup of the bill by midweek in the House Ag Committee, with House floor debate and votes as soon as he can.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Also out of Washington, President Trump telling a group of farm state governors and lawmakers that he's pressing China to treat the American agriculture industry fairly. The president met Thursday with a group of governors and congressional leaders from throughout the Midwest. The group has concerns with how U.S. tariffs and Chinese retaliatory tariffs could hurt rural America. President Trump says China has consistently treated U.S. ag unfairly, and his administration is changing things with respect to trade. And he's telling the group, quoting now, everything is going to be better. Meanwhile, President Trump asking top administration officials to look into rejoining talks on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The request came during that same meeting with farm state lawmakers. Trump asking U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and economic advisor Larry Kudlow to look into the U.S. rejoining the 11-nation pact. Now, also on the Hill, the president of the American Soybean Association testifying before the House Ways and Means Committee Thursday on the potential impact that tariffs could have on soybean growers. Iowa farmer John Heisdorfer says retaliation by China against U.S. tariffs would undercut prices received by soybean producers and further hurt the already depressed farm economy. Heisdorfer was joined by an array of business executives expressing alarm about the impact that tariffs could have on their business.
In 2017, China imported 1.4 billion bushels of U.S. soybeans, or 62% of total U.S. exports. This represents nearly 1/3 of our annual soy production. Over the next 10 years, Chinese demand for soybeans will grow annually by the size of our exports to the European Union.
Eisdorfer says soybean farmers want to be an essential part of helping lower our trade deficit with China. He says expanding market access can play a vital role in increasing the agricultural trade surplus. Meanwhile, the top NAFTA negotiator, USTR Robert Lighthizer, will not be attending the Summit of the Americas. That begins today in Peru. There had been hope that a NAFTA breakthrough might be announced at the gathering. Those expectations have been pushed back to early May. President Trump saying Thursday he has no timeline for negotiations. The president also telling reporters Thursday he's in favor of year-round sales of E15. The statement amid recent discussions centered on potential changes to the renewable fuel standard. Ethanol groups say they're pleased to get the president's support. Arkansas farmers and fruit growers are in worry and wait mode right now. Several crops were hit by a hard freeze last weekend, and another threat is on the way. In this photo from the University of Arkansas Extension, you can see how some young corn plants are showing signs of freezer burn after temperatures across Arkansas dropped into the 30s last weekend. Other crops like blueberries and grapes also got hit with the low temps. Farmers are still assessing the damage, and now they're bracing for another round of cold this weekend. In this report provided by the Arkansas Farm Bureau, Ken Moore visits one peach grower who expects widespread damage in his orchards.
Jameson Orchard near Nashville has been a destination for peach lovers for more than 6 decades. In his 58 years of work on the family farm, Joey Jameson didn't lose a crop to an April freeze until 2007. Then on April 8th, sub-freezing temperatures struck again, damaging his crop for the 3rd time in 9 years. With more than 3,000 trees to examine, it's too early to tell how much of his crop will be lost, but the damage seems widespread.
And we've got lots of peaches on the tree, but we had cold weather the other night that are, I'm afraid, has hurt them for pretty bad. We've got peaches that are still in the shuck, but are trying to come out of it. And then we have peaches that are already out of the shuck and bigger peaches. And these are the ones that I'm afraid are hurt the worst because they were out exposed to more cold weather. When I cut that peach open, you notice the little kernel inside is already turning brown, which tells me the peach is dead. And it's going to be shriveling up and falling off in the next week or 10 days. I'm hopeful, but I'm realistic too at the same time, and it got 31 degrees for 4 hours, which is, peaches in this stage is pretty critical. And I've got 30-something different varieties, so some of them may have decent, some of them, they're all in different stages. These here are further along than a lot of them. A lot of them are still got a lot of little peaches in there. Hopefully some of those will make it through, but it's hard to say right now.
This is Ken Moore reporting.
Planting is slow moving around the Corn Belt. Mike Hoffman has an update today in Crop Comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Tim Default of Crookston, Minnesota says not today when it comes to planting. He says his operation received an inch of snow on Wednesday. He hopes to miss out on even more over the weekend. At least he's hoping it'll miss them. As you can expect, the U.S. Drought Monitor says over 94% of the state is drought-free. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, it is going to be windy through the middle of the country all day today. In fact, it'll be many parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley as well. On into the day tomorrow, very windy from the Great Lakes to the southern plains, a little bit in the southeast, and then it just continues to be windy as a very slow-moving storm system comes across the plain states. We'll show you what that storm does to the rest of your forecast coming up in a few minutes, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
When we come back, we'll talk more about the Farm Bill and the obstacles standing in the way. And later, we'll stop in with the Farm Journal College team for a lesson on corn on corn.
With a uniquely powerful formulation of proven ingredients, Resicor Corn Herbicide gives you extraordinary power.
Who wants dessert?
At least when it comes to weeds.
In agribusiness, it was a mixed day on Thursday with strength in soybeans and livestock while wheat struggled. Details now from the Florida CME.
Soybean market traded mostly higher here on Thursday. We've had some really impressive contra-seasonal demand for U.S. soybeans here recently. We had a phenomenal export sales number on the weekly report from USDA today. We sold beans to China, we sold beans to Argentina, we sold beans to Mexico. You know, during this time of year, we generally don't do a whole lot of export business. You know, weather, I think, can impact the acreage mix, and I think it could result in more soybean acreage in some areas of the country if we get into a scenario where we can't plant corn early or we get into late planting. Some farmers will switch to soybeans and the prices are good, so you're going to have an economic incentive and also a weather incentive. That's something that could be negative down the road. The live cattle market was sharply higher here on Thursday. You know, for a few days this week, we started the days higher and then ended up finishing unchanged or lower or kind of mixed. We were actually able to hold the rally here on Thursday. Now the cash cattle market's been a little bit better. We did trade cash in the 117 range again, so we're finally seeing those April futures kind of come up to where the cash market has been for a while. Again, Joe Vec from CME Group here in Chicago.
It's one thing to roll out text for a farm bill. It's another to get it passed into the president's desk. Tyne Morgan joins us now with today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Pat Westhoff of the University of Missouri. Pat's with FAPRI, and he's been going through and looking at the farm bill, obstacles of getting the farm bill passed. Before I ask you what those obstacles are, do you think we can get a farm bill passed in 2018?
I think it can, but I think it's really tough to get it done this year.
And it's tough, and I know you have some hurdles that you've listed of why it will be tough. What are those hurdles that you foresee?
I think the single biggest one right now is SNAP. We have the House appearing to go one direction on SNAP, Senate giving a very different set of indications. Even if both houses manage to get something through their respective houses, what kind of compromise could we agree to that the president would also sign?
So do you think then that maybe we just extend the 2018 or the 2014 farm bill?
I think there's a very good chance that we'll do an extension at some point. That may not happen before October 1st, but probably has to happen by next spring.
But what then does an extension look like?
That's one of the big questions. Will we simply extend the current provisions for another year, another couple of years, or will we make some minor changes around the edges? There's no such thing as a simple extension. You know, it's not just a matter of changing a date or two. So what will we do about programs that would run out of funding this year? What will we do about, do we give people a new ARC and PLC choice in 2019? Lots of finer points like that have to still be resolved.
Like what are some key programs, Pat, that will run out of funding in 2018?
There are certain research programs that will extend, that will end at the end of 2018 fiscal year if there's no new legislation. Farmers market programs, organic research programs. There's 30-some programs overall. Most of them are very small programs, but they tend to have large political support out there.
At the same time, we have this trade and tariff talk going on and trying to figure out exactly how that impacts agriculture. If that does impact agriculture, do you think we try to fit something in the farm bill that will help producers who are suffering and struggling with lower prices?
I think that's one of the big questions. The administration appears to be intending to come up with their own package of proposals, things they can do under existing authority without requiring legislation. If they could put something together that people would buy, maybe you don't have to worry about it legislatively. But certainly we've heard already from leading members of Congress concerns about A, should that happen, and B, would we need to want to shape that somehow?
Yeah, exactly right, Pat. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have a check of weather.
Your vote could help a community organization win $10,000 and send a farmer on a dream sports trip. Vote now and help make dreams come true at powertodomore.com. Sponsored by Resicor Corn Herbicide.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, winter's still not over. It seems like even though we're in April.
Not in the northern plains or most of the Rockies. Yeah, you can see the snow this morning flying in those parts of the country. We have a very slow-moving storm system in eastern Nebraska, and the snow will be flying to the north and west of that area of low pressure, and that's just going to move ultra slow across the country over the next couple of days. You'll see in the jet stream why there's a cutoff low in the upper atmosphere, which is why it's just barely moving along. So it's going to be very wet across the Great Lakes. Northern areas will turn white, and it'll be wet back into eastern Nebraska, all the way down the front into East Texas, western Louisiana. But on the backside, we'll continue to see the snow. And you can see some rain and snow coming into the Pacific Northwest with the next system, which is also moving slow because it's kind of backed up. It's like a train here, and you slow down one car, obviously the next one slows down as well. Very warm throughout the southeast and mid-Atlantic states. Heading into tomorrow morning, showers and thunderstorms from the lower Great Lakes all the way down into southeast Texas. Snow continues on the west side, and you see the rain turns to snow over Nebraska, Kansas, northwestern Iowa, and it continues to be snow farther east across northern Michigan. Might be a little bit of freezing rain developing then between the rain and the snow out of this system as well, something we need to watch. Precipitation estimate past 24 hours, some amounts in the northeast and the northern Rockies, but it's really going to be that storm system coming east and the Gulf moisture feeding up that puts down big moisture, especially if we get some heavy thunderstorms near the Gulf Coast and a little bit farther north. Snowfall's been mainly out west in the northern Great Lakes, and that's where it's going to continue, but it is going to move farther and farther south into the central plain states as we head through the next 36 hours. Big difference across this front, high 70s south of it, 30s to the north, and that's going to continue to be the case. Tonight's lows in the teens in the cold air, but still 60s in the Ohio Valley southward. And that continues tomorrow with just some minor changes. There's the jet stream, and you can see that cutoff low that is that storm system at the surface. Going to move very, very slowly. Eventually it moves into the east, and you can see another one coming east. But overall, it's a little bit of a zonal flow, which will warm places up more than you've been recently over the next week or so. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, for Baker City, Oregon, cloudy, some showers, high of 56 degrees. Grand Island, Nebraska, cloudy with rain developing, high around 60. And finally, Frankfort, Kentucky, partly sunny and on the warm side, high around 78.
Skipping rotations can have its own set of challenges. Next, we'll talk about the challenges of corn after corn. And later, farmers and ranchers are being heard in Washington. Perspective and Farm Sense from yours truly. If you often skip rotations or you're thinking about it this year, Farm Journal agronomist Missy Bauer says there are some things you need to be mindful of when going corn after corn.
Some of the top mistakes to try to avoid if you're just getting into corn on corn, number one is going to be nitrogen management. So we've run into a lot of issues because we've got all the carbon to actually process from the previous year's crop. So when you start managing your nitrogen program in corn on corn, we got to make sure we have enough nitrogen up front to manage what we call the carbon penalty, which is helping the microbes break down last year's corn residue. That's going to take a little bit of broadcast nitrogen out there to do that. We also got to make sure there's enough nitrogen there to feed the plants. We got to keep the plants happy and keep the microbes happy at the same time. It's a lot different than if it's a corn-soybean rotation. So that's a big change, is not only the total pounds N you're looking at in your program, but the timing and placement of those pounds of nitrogen that's going on. Another big aspect and mistake that we want to avoid is in hybrid selection. Are you selecting hybrids that are suitable for corn on corn? And this is going to go back to disease management and traits that are in there. Then the other issue we got to pay attention to is just going to be pest management in general. So how has it changed your environment for disease when you have all this residue that's overwintering out there and being a resource for inoculum for that following year? And then what does it mean for things like corn rootworm or some other pests that we typically see potentially higher in certain rotations?
When we come back, are we in a crisis or fighting to avoid one? A little Farm Sense after the break.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
I think it's safe to say that agriculture has found its voice. I've seen it on Twitter, on Facebook, in the halls of Washington. America's farmers and ranchers are engaged in the issues at hand in a way I've not seen since starting my career, and rightly so. Questions about the future of NAFTA, trade with China, a new farm bill, potential changes to the renewable fuel standard, a budding drought, and a sputtering ag economy all hit at the heart of one passionate industry. And while, yes, we stand on the chasm's edge, thankfully, we are not yet hurtling toward the bottom. With the exception of maybe dairy, commodity prices are kind of holding. Don't get me wrong, they could be better, but by all economists' accounts, this is not the 1980s. And if you need perspective, you don't have to look far to find it. Argentinian farmers are looking at their worst crop in a decade, a 30% drop in soybean production. Now imagine if that were here. In Venezuela, people are starving because of a lack of food, and in South Africa, farms are in the middle of a race war. Yes, there are dark clouds here at home, but I'm impressed by so many voices standing up to be heard, people doing what they can to deal with that uncertainty. much like the weather they face each and every year. And this year, finding certainty in front of a planner might be the absolute best way for some mental stability, if it ever warms up. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in and spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.